The New York Knicks franchise has been one of the most underachieving teams in all of pro sports. Despite its big market attractiveness, the Knicks franchise has failed to emulate the success of the very city it belongs to. While there is plenty of blame to go all around the organization, especially at the top, the Knicks consistently manage to mess up every aspect of basketball operations year in and year out. Today, we'll look at the 4 worst trades in New York Knicks history. Number 4. Antonio McDyess. The early 2000s marked a period in time when the Knicks made a contentious effort of trading young talent for veteran players. In an effort to get older, one of the trades that the Knicks partook in was a deal centered around Antonio McDyess. On draft night in 2002, the Knicks gave up Marcus Camby, a premier frontcourt defender at the time, Mark Jackson, a veteran star guard, and the rights to 7th overall pick Nene for McDyess. McDyess was a productive big man in his early years, but declined from being a 20-10 type of guy in his last year in Denver, where he played only 10 games due to injury. What was already seen as a lopsided trade became even worse once McDyess re-aggravated his knee injury in a preseason game for the Knicks, which ultimately caused him to miss the remainder of the 2002-03 season. The following season, McDyess was a shell of his old self, averaging just 9 points in 18 games before being a salary dump in the Stephon Marbury trade. It is safe to say that the knee injury did quite a number on McDyess, as he was really never the same player again. Number 3. The Andre Bargnani trade. With the Miami Heat continuing their dominance over the Eastern Conference, the New York Knicks knew they had to make a big move in the offseason to help boost their chances of title contention. So in the summer of 2013, the Knicks made a trade with the Toronto Raptors for the former first overall pick in the 2006 draft, in which they gave up Marcus Camby, Steve Novak, their 2016 first-round pick, and 2 future second-round picks. The trade received heaps of criticism as the former Raptor had many problems of his own. Bargnani was quite injury-ridden as he only managed to play 66 games in the previous 2 seasons while he was on the Raptors. While on the court, Bargnani was not much of impact either. He averaged about 16 points per game in the previous 2 seasons combined, shooting 41.5% from the field and 30.2% from 3. His defense ranked amongst the worst in the league, and he was also known to be one of the worst rebounding big men in the NBA. The Knicks thought the 7-footer would be their much-needed secondary scorer after Carmelo Anthony, and would also space the floor neatly. However, this did not go nearly as planned, as Bargnani and the Knicks only managed to win just 37 games the following year. During that season, Bargnani managed to play 42 games while averaging 13 points per game on 45% shooting with 5 rebounds per game. After the following season, the Knicks wanted nothing to do with the former first overall pick and let Bargnani walk away in free agency. The trade was seen as so lopsided that many joked Masai Ujiri was wearing a ski mask when he robbed the Knicks. Number 2. Eddy Curry. After refusing to submit a DNA test in 2005 so that the Chicago Bulls could determine whether Eddy Curry had a congenital heart disease or not, it was quite obvious that the player-team relationship had come to an end. Luckily for the Bulls, the New York Knicks saw Eddy Curry as a booming player with star potential. In an effort to acquire Curry, the New York Knicks traded Mike Sweetney, Tim Thomas, and Jermaine Jackson for the young guard. They also exchanged first-round draft picks with the Bulls, a move that would eventually hurt them in the next draft. That year, the Knicks only managed to win 23 games, in which Curry averaged 15 points per game and 6 rebounds. Curry's underwhelming defense and rebounding frustrated former coaches Scott Skiles and Larry Brown. The following season, Curry had a much better year under new head coach Isaiah Thomas. As the primary option on the team, Curry averaged 19.6 points per game and 7 rebounds. Coming off a career season, the Knicks had high expectations for Curry as he was going to be coupled with newly acquired Zach Randolph. The new head coach, Mike D'Antoni, had big plans for the big men. However, Curry showed up to camp out of shape and lost his starting spot. He was soon even forced out of the rotation. In 59 games, Curry averaged 13 points per game and 5 rebounds, quite a drop from his last year. Curry played a total of 10 games the following 2 seasons on the Knicks, which is when his career with the franchise came to an end. Number 1. Patrick Ewing. The Knicks' worst trade of all time has to be the trade in which the franchise shipped its greatest player ever. Patrick Ewing, a top 10 center of all time, was one of the most dominant players the league had seen during the latter half of the 80s and up to the mid-90s. Unfortunately for Ewing, he, like many other greats during this time, were overshadowed by the success of the great Michael Jordan. The decision to trade Ewing came at the dawn of the new century when the disgruntled Hall of Famer had demanded a trade so that he could depart from the only team he had ever played with. It was the last year of Ewing's contract when the Hall of Famer finally had enough with the franchise. The combination of not receiving a contract extension, coupled with the exhaustion from years of trying to win a ring, had Ewing demanding a trade. The Knicks did not want to extend the aging superstar and had $18 million left on the last year of his deal. Many analysts called for the Knicks to sit tight and hold onto Ewing and his expiring contract. However, in what was described as a panic move, the Knicks decided to trade Ewing and build around their thought-to-be superstar, Latrell Sprewell. Ewing was seen as a declining asset as many teams were not ready to give up much for him. Finally, the Knicks found a partner who was willing to take on Ewing for the right price. In a move that some critics claimed set the franchise back 10 years, the Knicks gave up Ewing to Seattle for Glenn Rice, Luke Longley, and Travis Knight. The move was especially disastrous because the Knicks ended up taking about $90 million in payroll all the way through 2004. By taking on these bad contracts, the Knicks basically took themselves out of free agency, where they could assign players such as Tracy McGrady. Instead of talking to Ewing and allowing his contract to expire off the books and have the Hall of Famer retire with the franchise, the Knicks decided to take on bad contracts that would ultimately lay the foundation for their underwhelming performance in the new decade. The Knicks are one of the few teams that belong in a huge market yet seem to fail year in and year out. These trades are somewhat indicative of some of the reasons why the Knicks are constantly one of the poorer franchises in the league.